reconvened meeting from yesterday. Okay. Freudian stuff, yeah. Right. Maura is going to call the summons and attendance. We'll have 3 apologies. All right.
Chair. You're hereby summoned to attend the reconvened meeting of the Planning Committee on the main hall in the Guildhall on Thursday, the 8th of July. Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor John Boyle. Alderman Alan Breslin. Councillor Angela Dobbins. Councillor Paul Gallagher. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Aye.
Apologies. Councillor. Okay. Councillor Christopher Jackson. Councillor Dan Kelly. That's right. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
On his way, Maura.
Alderman Hilary McClintock. Councillor Kieran Maguire. Councillor Philip McKinney. Councillor Aileen Mellon. And Councillor Sean Mooney. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have apologies for Jason Barr, Alan Breslin, Derek Hussey, Dan Kelly, and Keith is on his way, and Councillor Maguire, apologies.
Derek here, I'm online.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, members. I would like to remind you, everyone, that this is remote attendance. That is, the meeting will be broadcast live via the Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with the Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in this meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purposes of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website, www.derrystrabane.com. I should also point out to members that this is a hybrid meeting, so officers will be speaking through the virtual means. And I'll also remind members that if you're on virtually, you do not have any voting rights. Thank you. Is there any declarations of interest? Okay, then we'll move straight into the applications. Application number 8 from yesterday is LA 1120200684F, and that'll be taken by Malaga. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Item 8 is LA 1120200684F. It's a full planning application for the erection of a switch room and bin storage room to serve Building 2 of the adjacent approved Grade A office development, which was approved under LA 11/2018-11/64 Reserve Matters, with an associated minor alterations to adjoining footpaths and vehicular hard standing. The site is located 150 metres northeast of the waterside roundabout at King Street, Edmonton, and the recommendation is to approve. The site, as I say in the description, is located near the Dales Corner Junction and the waterside roundabout. It's located at the building currently under construction, which was alluded to in the description, which was a Reserve Matters application approved by the Department of Infrastructure in accordance with the Edmonton framework. So the site itself at present is a building site, but here's an earlier photograph where it was previously a car park area. So it's in the top corner of the existing building site. The application is quite minor in its nature. What we have here is a block plan on the left-hand side. We've got a small switch room, and then an outside area which is to be used for bin storage. Both of these areas are submerged at a lower level and won't be readily viewable from Kings Road as you travel up. The switch room itself is just an enclosed room with a block finish and door into it, and the bin storage has a retaining wall and an access into it. And this is the second one of these approved for the office development. There was one originally submitted in the application, and we've been advised it has to accommodate no multiple occupants in the property. So in terms of the policy context, we have normal policy context in terms of the area plan and urban design. It's within the setting of listed buildings, so BU2 will apply. And we also have to take cognizance of the SPPS and PPS 6, given the location near listed buildings and scheduled monuments. And we've also kind of taken into consideration PPS 3 in terms of access and movement and parking. We did consult a number of bodies given the location of the development. We consulted Historic Environment Division, both historic buildings and monuments. Both have considered the impacts of the proposal and are satisfied that it's compliant with policy and will have no adverse impact on the acknowledged areas. DFA roads have no objections subject to condition, really access to the site, and have also advised some information in relation to the contents of the plan, which will be brought to the attention of the applicant. So in summary, the context of the site, there's a number of listed buildings in and around the area. You have the Starfort Wall and scheduled monument. You have an already approved office development, which is under construction. This is a minor extension, which wasn't considered under the original reserve matters. And as there's no permitted development rights, it required a separate full application. So in all, we believe that it's compliant with the relevant plan and policies, and we recommend approval today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malachi. Any questions for the officer? Okay. Want to propose?
No questions, Chair. I see this as a relatively straightforward application. There's no policy concerns whatsoever. And the only reason why it's coming to this committee is because it's within the Edmonton site that's of strategic importance to us as a council. So this is like the previous application. It's an addition and improvement to an already approved application. So I'm happy to propose that we accept the recommendation to approve. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Boyce.
Yeah, just to formally second the proposal from Councillor Jackson. No further comment.
I take it that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to item 6 on the agenda, and that's the TPO of the former church site. And Pontius is going to take us through that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members.
Pontius, can you speak up a bit, please?
Sorry, good afternoon, members. Just to share. This application, or sorry, this report, members, is to seek members' agreement on the recommendation to confirm or not confirm a provisional TPO at a site at Beechwood Park and Clonmane Drive in Strathfoyle. As a context, the site, the land in question, it's an overgrown site. It's a small field on which there was a former church, and it's former church building. So there's like a hard standing, and it's an overgrown piece of land, on the and probably in the heart of Strathfoyle at the west.
Pontius, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Members, can you not hear me at all, or just it's low?
It's very, very muffled, Pontius.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's a bit better. Thank you.
Um, and so members, sorry, this is an overgrown site within Strathfoyle at the edge of Clonmene Drive and Beechwood Park in Strathfoyle. There was a former church building and there's like a hard standing. It's an overgrown site, pretty much in the heart of a housing area with there's a pitch and a playground next door. There's about 15 trees on, or sorry, there's about,
Just hold the line there, please.
so there's about 15 trees on the site. This site first came to the council's attention at the start of February.
Just hold the line there, please.
Sorry. Anyone here? What's wrong?
Members, just bear with us here. We're a few technical problems. We're gonna get sorted here.
Can you hear me now, members? Can you hear me now? What's happening? Is there a mute or unmute button or something like that? No, there's mute button, but it's share audio and video. Hello, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Audio and video.
Okay, members, we're going to give it another go here. Okay, Pontius?
Oh yeah, can you hear me now, the members?
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So, right, members, I'll start from the start again. Sorry I forgot there. The purpose of this report is to seek members' agreement on a recommendation regarding the confirmation or otherwise of a provisional TPO at Beechwood Park and Clonmene Drive in Strathfoyle. As context, this site is in the pretty much the heart of Strathfoyle, just at the western edge. There's a housing on three sides of it, with the park and playground at the other side. There was a former church on the site probably 20, 30 years ago. It's overgrown now, and there's hard standing on the site, and there's approximately 10 main trees on the site, mostly sycamore, younger birch, and some ornamentals. This site, members, first came to the council's attention at the start of February this year, when a number of trees were being felled, and there was intervention by local persons, and the felling was stopped, and there were requests to council from members and residents to apply a provisional tree preservation order. This was duly done, and a provisional tree preservation order was served on the site on the 9th of February in 2021. This was to allow officers time to get a tree survey report and to consider whether it was appropriate to have a confirmed TPO on the site. Immediately after the service of the provisional tree preservation order, we received 12 emails in support of the provisional TPO, and also shortly after that we received one letter of objection from the site owners that they were opposed to the imposition of a TPO. That last submission from the members, there was also a full arboriculturalist report was submitted, and you see the main contents of that, members, are on the screen in front of you, the maps there. In summary, there were 12 trees specifically on the site, and I think 8 of them were in medium condition, but they were unsuitable for retention, or at most a 10 years life remaining in them, and there were 4 of them which were actually recommended for felling for site safety. Members, before us is the when we're deciding whether or not to confirm a tree preservation order, we have 3 options. Either within 6 months, we have to, which would be the 13th of August, we have to either confirm the TPO in its entirety, or we can confirm it with modifications, i.e. excluding some of the trees, or say we can allow the TPO to lapse. The criteria for whether or not we make a TPO and confirm a TPO are set out in your report in paragraph 3.5. But primarily in this situation, considerations are the fundamental issue is the health and condition of the trees. Then whether the trees are significant and prominent in public views, i.e. they're of public amenity value. And then are they perceived to be under threat? As I said earlier, members, in following the service of the provisional TPO, there was a full arboriculturist report. It was submitted initially by the owners of the site, but then the council commissioned our own independent review of that report, and it was in agreement, and it found that it was a reliable and accurate survey and recommendations on the trees. So in summary, trees 7, 10, 11 and 12 are recommended to be felled for site safety. And of the remaining trees, they would be, we think that number 6 and 9 in the middle of the site could be endangered due to wind throw because of the trees that were previously removed in February, but also the 4 which are now recommended for refusal. And the rest are either in mediocre condition, they're not visually great, and they don't meet the TPO standards. While the trees in sight are currently quite visually significant, and they are quite prominent in the middle of this housing area, as I said, they are of varying condition, and a number of them are actually for immediate removal. We've given the details in the report, members, of which ones are the poorest, and I'll just take you through it briefly. You'll see the ones with the red dots in the center of the screen, 7, 10, 11 and 12, particularly number 10, which is it looks a very good birch, but it's got severe disease and a split in the trunk, and it needs to be removed. Number 7, similarly, I think it's a very large sycamore, but it's diseased and to be removed. 11 and 12 similarly are smaller, I think ornamental trees to be removed. The remaining trees are considered to be not great species and have limited lifespan left in them. So members, having considered the criteria for TPO confirmation, we believe that this site is no longer suitable or up to a high enough standard to meet the criteria for TPO confirmation. Therefore, members advised, or it's recommended, that this provisional TPO should be allowed to lapse. In the submission from the owners, they did indicate that they would prefer, and it was their intention, to develop this site. And in the event of a future planning application, it would be hoped that in the normal manner, some of the peripheral trees could indeed be retained, but they are of marginal quality, and some of the main 2, 6 and 9 that remain, chances are that they are actually, there's quite a high risk probably of them being blown over. Therefore, members, as recommended to you that we allow this TPO, or provisional TPO, to lapse and do not confirm it. Happy to take any questions, members.
Thank you for that, Pontius. Councillor Dobbins.
Thank you, Chair. Question to Pontius would be, who carried out the survey? It seems to have been blanked out there, and on a passage, on a paragraph as well, it was Mr. AAX, you know, why is this happening? I'll just explain why it's happening in that report. Chair, long-term viability of remaining trees would not be in question if environmental vandalism had not occurred in the first place. In February 2021, local residents were awoken to the noise of chainsaws and the horror that a number of trees on this site were being felled. no prior consideration or acknowledgement to the surrounding local residents. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it has taught us that the green spaces, nature, trees, plants are all important to human health and to mental health. And we as a council, given the fact that we recently passed a motion with regard to rights of nature, should lead by example and protect nature where it possibly can. I would go further, and I'm making this proposal that we should not only extend the TPO, the PTPO, that we should give full tree protection order for the remaining trees. Not to do so would be contradictory of our declaration of climate emergency. What we must consider not only we must consider is not only their individual quality and health of these trees, but their collective value of what is currently remaining. I personally akin the felling of these trees as nothing short than environmental vandalism, as I said before, which in itself is a crime. I acknowledge the owner or applicant who has given oral assurances and has stated his or her intentions that remaining trees would not be touched. But not to issue a TPO is an acknowledgement on our part of what has happened previously, that it's okay. I believe that what gets rewarded gets repeated. That's all I'd like to say, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Jackson.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Angela, for those comments. I know Angela alluded to making a proposal as part of that. I just wouldn't mind hearing the proposal again. It was extending the TPO.
No, sorry, through you, Chair. No, Councillor. Whilst I do see one of the recommendations is to extend the provisional TPO, I think it is our duty as a council to actually put a full TPO on the remaining trees. Thank you.
Is that okay for you? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and it helps. I concur with everything that Angela had said there now, and she articulated it very well. I know we have received correspondence from the Inuit Forum, and I know there's been other communication. This has been highlighted in the media and described as environmental vandalism following the incident in February, and it's caused widespread concern throughout the community in Strathroy. There is sensitivities around a buffer between the housing development and the open countryside. This action, the environmental vandalism has done a lot of damage in terms of the confidence in the local community in Strathroy. What I feel when I was reading through some of the communication, it brought me back to some of the conversations that we were having as part of the LDP process. Whenever we hear of potential developments, usually the first sign of a potential development is the buzz of chainsaws. And what we would like to do, or what we'd like to see, is whenever any future developments or any landowner wishes to explore development on their land, that they have conversations with our planning department. And that's the direction of travel that we should be going down. We should be protecting the planning process. And this, what has been described as environmental damage, is not only an attack on the trees and the wildlife, but it's an affront to the process as well. And I think we should be using this as an example to say that we will not be tolerating this type of approach, and we expect better from any potential developers. So I'm happy to second the proposal that that Councillor Dobbins has made, with the only caveat is because I know that there was reference in the report of some damage and disease in the trees, and rather than I fully appreciate that damage and the disease may be as a direct result of the environmental vandalism that had been referred to. So I hope Angela would accept is that we explore any avenue of the replacement of any diseased trees that need to be removed, and the replacement of any of the trees that have been felled in February of this year. Thank you, Chair.
Are you looking to amend the original proposal, you're saying, yeah? Okay, Maura wants to come in. I'll get you in a minute, Paul.
Sorry, I just want to clarify what powers we have and what we can and can't do. So, you know, we can't extend the emergency TPO, so that's the provisional TPO. So the purpose of that is clearly when we think trees, we originally get a contact in regard to a TPO request. That legislation was fairly new that we use that, so clearly that's the timeline, but that expires, it expires. There's no opportunity to extend that, just to confirm. So what really we can do here is either modify what's in front of us, or we can confirm it as a permanent TPO. Within that consideration, the report highlights which trees are already through an arboriculture report that the council has paid for. It's by M. Large. Councillor Dobbins, it's just at the front, you would ask that question. So that is a formal process. So when that report now tells us what trees are dead, dying and dangerous, and it wouldn't be appropriate for us to protect a tree. In fact, I've never tried to do that, you know, because we've always, obviously, in terms of the criteria, we wouldn't want to be doing that as a council. So that taken on board, I think what members would be seeking is a modification which doesn't include those trees that are dead, dying and dangerous. Now, in terms of powers that we would have for replacement of those trees, if we were confirming a TPO, and I'm hoping Johnny and Pontius are on the line to confirm that I think we can seek replacement of those that are dead, dying and dangerous. Those trees that are already gone, I am not sure we would have the powers to do that. So just before members go into a vote, I just want to let you know what we can and can't do. So that would be my assessment of it. Pontius and Johnny, maybe you could come in and confirm that.
Yes, or through the chair. Thank you. Yeah, it's really, I suppose I need to point out that at the start that the removal of the trees at the start of February was not actually against the law. It was done prior to the bird season, and it wouldn't actually have been against the law. But just to make that clear, in terms of the confirmation, I don't think we wouldn't we wouldn't confirm a TPO on the 4 which are currently recommended for felling. That would be against the procedures because they're dead, dying, and dangerous, and someone can remove them. You know, there's been a report, a professional report, which gives the owner the right to remove them today, tomorrow. If a tree is dead, dying, or dangerous, they can fell it without coming for any permission. And in fact, some of the trees which were felled at the start of February show signs, even though it's after the fact, that there were signs of rot in the core of some of them, and some of them probably would have been justified has been dead, dying, or dangerous. So we wouldn't be able to, we'd have to modify a TPO and protect the ones which are retained, which are remaining. If any of those were subsequently to be removed, or if we get an application, either as a part of a planning application or just an application to remove any of them which were of poor health, then we would have to consider whether or not we let them go. And then we could ask for replacement planting. The ones which are already gone, that would be beyond the council's powers to ask for them to get a replacement. So the option is that members, if we decide not to accept a recommendation to let the provisional lapse, then it would be to confirm it with the modification, but removing those four red marked ones. Members, there's also a number of the quite small ornamentals and conifers, likes of 5G there. We wouldn't normally recommend them for a TPO either. Hopefully that's helpful, members.
Through you, Chair, would it be possible just to add something further to what Branches has just said, if that's okay?
Yeah, go ahead, Johnny.
Thank you, Chair. Just an important point to make, that in addition to the tree survey that was carried out by M. For the landowner, in which we then subsequently had an independent cooperation done by Mr. A. Bow, who's an independent arboriculturalist. He concurs with the original report in that there are trees that are recommended to be felled for site safety. Those are not covered under the TPO legislation, and those can be felled at any time. The remaining trees that are left, while visually significant in the area, have various defects in them, or are showing signs of stress, liens, or have been grown up in the shelter of their other sort of leafy trees that have stood around them. Now that those trees have either been felled or surrounding trees around them are recommended to be felled, that will leave them exposed to wind throw. Meaning that you've got a lovely tree which looks, it's got a lovely full canopy from one side, but from the other side of the trunk, it's completely, devoid of any real branches, leaf cover, and ultimately a balancing weight. Those remaining trees, while the people of Strathfoyle are admiring them now, would have to consider and appreciate that to keep those trees safe, there are significant amounts of remedial works required, and those too, if the applicant chooses, to keep the site, or the landowner chooses to keep the site safe, that the trees that they are looking at now, some of them are requiring up to like 30% of a reduction in their height, and others, will be requiring 3 or 4 meters of weight taken off their branches, so they may not look like what they look like now. So it's just to bear that in mind, that the visual amenity which the landowner could rightfully wish to undertake to make his site safe, should anyone want to walk past it now or in the future, will require significant remedial works to bring them into a healthy condition, thereby possibly removing any visual significance or significantly reducing any of the sort of the amenity value that they have at the minute, to make them safe and to enable them to live, as the report suggests, a further 10 years, which is the life expectancy which most of the trees on the site have been given. Thank you, Chair.
You, Johnny, with quite a few members wishing to speak, but I would just like to clarify what the proposal is. Just bear with us. Is that a permanent TPO and replacement on trees that need to be felled for health reasons? Is that okay, members? Would you agree with that? Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to offer the. Can you just confirm that's okay, Maura?
Yeah, that was just seeking clarification for members that what's possible, and yes, it's possible to modify the TPO and make it permanent for those that are healthy. Those that aren't will need to be felled, because obviously that, however, we can seek a replacement for those, and it's members' decision, you know, in regard to the other trees, obviously, that may be affected, but at this stage don't need felled.
Councillor Gallagher?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Livingston. I would concur with the previous speakers, Councillor Dobbins and Councillor Jackson, and what they're coming from. I think that possibly maybe that we could have probably done a bit more work maybe around stuff around and what's clearly come out about the public amenity and the values that local public has on these trees. And again, I think what Councillor Jackson was saying is possibly a report around, you know, what could be done to save the trees, rather than just saying this is danger to wind, or this is open to wind, and this is dangerous. Is there any methods that can be done to protect the trees and let them, as I say, stand on their own right? And with that, I would very much support the proposal that's on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Alderman McClintock?
Thanks, Chair. And my first reaction, I suppose, to the proposal was that I didn't want to support that. But I think the clarification from Pronches and from Maura has helped. We certainly don't want to be, I think we're all minded in the same way. It's just how we reach the desired place. We don't want to be, I think we need to sort out those dead and dying trees. They need to be removed, and those with defects, we obviously need a way of, and I think it's quite clear from what Johnny has said, Chair, that the remediation is going to quite change them in appearance quite a lot to what they would be there at the moment. I suppose it sounded quite dramatic at the beginning to say about the environmental vandalism, but I'm presuming from what we've heard that that is actually the landowner. It wasn't vandals coming into the site and destroying the trees, that it was actually the landowner. I would be in favour certainly of removing all those that are dangerous or dying or are bad defects, but and I'd also be in favour of replacement trees where possible. I suppose it's just a question of how we reach that desired stage and how we can work that. I think generally we're of the same mind, but it's just how we go about doing that. Thank you.
Councillor Boyd?
Okay. Right. Well, I mean that does clear up quite a bit of the grey area that we had, Chair. I think the desire from this committee, as you can hear from previous speakers, is to do our best to protect as many of these trees as we possibly can. And I think that's what the combination of the proposal between Councillor Dobbins and Councillor Jackson is affording us the opportunity to do. And again, I would be of an opinion that those that are considered a danger to the public, that if they need to be removed, I know we can't prevent that from happening, given the clarification from officers that they should be replaced. I think there's much affection for this particular area in Strathfoyle. The community there clearly do see it as an amenity that they value, and we as their public representatives must listen to them too. So whilst we are bound by a number of constraints, and there are things that we cannot do, there are also things that we can do, and I think the proposal affords us that opportunity. So I am supportive of that combination as presented by Councillors Dobbins and Jackson.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Over to Councillor Dobbins.
Thank you for letting me in again, Chair. It's just I know this is getting bantered left, right and centre here with amenity value, and you know, the value of a tree is it's alive. You know, there's actually reference in the report here about a tree being misshapen, so therefore it should be destroyed. So, the rights of nature is something like human rights. So every tree has a right, regardless of what type it is. Like some of those trees may be at, and I've seen it there saying end of life. We've got to be careful that some of these trees have actually got 10 years left in their life, you know. And definitely, I really thank Councillor Jackson there for putting on what I had admitted of actually replanting. But the replant saplings is not good enough. It should be replanting a wee bit more of a mature tree, you know, so that it will flourish. Had the trees not been cut down, would they have been an impediment to any subsequent planning application? This is my point at the very beginning. What was done may not have been illegal, officers, but it was pretty underhanded. And those trees are definitely intricate to the character of that area, like Beechwood Park, Beechwood, because there's beaches there. I'm sorry, Chair, for going on there, but I thank everybody for sort of for their support for that proposal.
Mr. Dobbins, over to Councillor Milne, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think a lot of things have already been said. I know where there's hazard and there's risk, it needs reduced or eliminated where we can. So we really have no, we've no other say in that. And there's things that just need to happen in favour of the replacement of it. But and I think it can contribute to a more long-term solution. I do think that maybe there is more work that need done with the owner in order for them to see the community impact that this can have in terms of the environment, the people around it. I can see that it's a buffer for the children's centre, the play park, so that it can be used there for the community as well. And I think maybe a more longer term solution, because we can put individual TPOs on, but the foundations of what we're all discussing here today is going to stay. And I don't think that can be done in isolation as a council. We have to come together with landowners and with other people. And I can see Councillor Dobbins's frustration, but this is a private landowner as well, and we need to start to encourage a more conversation, support and openness, so that we can stop these from getting to this stage, that there is an open door process there for people to come and ask questions and work the betterment for the environment. Thank you.
Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. I was just a couple of wee questions in there. Is this site, as say, I seen from the map there that there's the play park beside it, and I see you're going down into the trees and down by the river and down into Lough Foyle there as well. But I'm wondering here, is this site open to the public? Can the public access this site? Is the site locked up? Is there any access to it? Is it just the case that those that are living in that area are looking at it, or is it somewhere that they can walk through, or is it not safe to walk through? Is one question I would have. But from looking at that there, I suppose, and looking at the images here, the largest trees in this section seems to be those three. Is it 6, 7 and 9 are in there, and number 7's to be removed due to the tree not being in a good health or diseased, and 6 and 9 as Johnny has stated, and I see in the report there, they're to be reduced by over 4 meters in height. So there's going to be a massive difference in the visual aspect of what it is now and will be when those items are taken into consideration. I'm just wondering, is there anything that we could be setting here in the lines of a precedent? I'm thinking, I know this is one part here, but I'm thinking around the rest of our district council area. Are we going to be stopping some man from cutting down a tree somewhere else, or is this going to be, I'm just thinking of where it could lead into the other knock-on effects of this. But it's more so a question maybe for Prontius and for Johnny there in regards to these smaller or minor trees, if you want to put it that way, that are not used, they're not maybe of the same significant stature as other trees which would receive tree preservation orders. Are we setting any sort of precedent in regards to putting them, or is it just as a come-as-you-go basis on it, Chair? Thank you.
I'll let more in there for reply to that.
Just to confirm, we don't TPO ornamental trees like cherry trees and, you know, those types of trees. It's just not common practice. So we wouldn't be recommending that we would do that here. So we were really concentrating on, members are obviously mentioning the trees that would be TPO applicable. So that would be our standard practice. You know, you're quite right. We wouldn't normally do that. So I'm assuming that members wouldn't be asking us to put a TPO on cherry trees or any of the ornamental trees. We're just obviously at this point discussing those trees that are above that standard. Yeah, that's grand. Thanks.
Johnny Pontius, I wonder, could you answer the question with regards to public access to that area?
There is, members will see there's like a on the map, there's a line there, a flagged footpath across the site at the eastern end. But there's like a low chain link fence and an ordinary gate along it. So like it's not a site that's particularly blocked off. It's a sort of like an overgrown area which I take it people walk onto. But it's in private ownership and it's not a public ownership.
Just to confirm, members, just so you can hear there, probably it's a brownfield site that's private, so it's not accessible, you know, open to the public at the moment.
Just so the trees, members, that it would be potentially able to
Brad, I can't hear you. Could you speak a wee bit, please?
Sorry, the trees which are potentially TPOable are the main ones, as the member said there, are 6 and 9, even though both of them will be reduced. Over closer to the entrance, number 2 is a sycamore. It's not in great condition or appearance, but it could be retained and TPO'd. Those are just bushes at number 5. There's like a conifer at number 9, which again, it looks reasonable, but yeah, it could be TPO'd. It's not a great specimen or anything in it by any means. So then, just to be clear, the 4 in red, which are to be removed, we are not able to TPO them, and we are not able to ask for a replacement of those 4. Similarly, we're not able to ask for a replacement of ones which were removed in February. But if any of the others are subsequently, if we subsequently get an application to remove any of these which we have TPO'd, we would then be in a position to ask for a replacement of those trees. So it's primarily 6, 9, 2, and up at the top corner, I think maybe it's 4.
You, Pontius, Councillor Mooney, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Just to lend support to the proposals put forward by Councillor Dobbins and Councillor Jackson, and to note the comments of the remaining members. Just the fact is that I don't think anybody wants to see the destruction or death of any trees in our locality, but really what I want to say is really if we can pass on or convey to the landowner, anything we can do is any of those trees that are considered to be dead, dying or dangerous, if there's any chance or any capable way of any of these trees being rehabilitated anyway, then obviously those could be conveyed and those messages could be conveyed, because that's probably the most important message that we can send is that any rehabilitation of any of these trees is probably one of the main things that we can send out today. But that's all I have to say, Chair. Thank you.
You, Councillor Mooney. Councillor Boyle.
Yeah, just to make one further comment, Chair. I think an important message is also coming out from this planning committee, and that message is that we do take very, very seriously a situation like this developing, and that anybody in future who feels that they can simply choose to chop trees at their own whim, you know, they need to take cognizance of the fact that this committee will take that significantly seriously as well. So I don't think attitudes here are going to change. And everybody's made their feelings known. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, members, for all those comments, and I would agree with all of them. And I think the thing we need to say is to these planners is take note, please. And you should be talking to, not the planners, sorry, to the developers. Take note, please, and speak to the planners before you proceed. Because, I mean, this has really got out of hand. And perhaps if they had spoke to the planners first, the developers spoke to the planners first, this wouldn't have got this far. So the proposal is a permanent TPO and a replacement on the trees that need to be felled for health reasons. Yeah, okay, more, yeah.
Sorry, I just want to be really clear about this. What we can do is modify the TPO that we've in front of us, because what's in front of us, we don't have a recommendation with a modification in front of us. So what you're requesting officers to do is to modify the existing, the current temporary TPO to include all the healthy trees. Those that are dead, dying and dangerous and need to be felled will be felled, and a request made for those trees to be replaced. And those trees that require remedial works that will be TPO'd, that we request those works. And just to confirm, members, we may not have the power to enforce the replacement or the remedial works, but we will request it, and if we have the powers, we'll use it. It's just, but I'm just clarifying that it's a modification and that officers can do a modification. It's a modification, it's not permanent.
Okay, apologies. Okay, so the proposal is a modification of TPO and replace on trees that need to be felled for health reasons, or a request, should I say, on the trees that need to be felled for health reasons are replaced. Okay, show of hands. Okay. So, any against? Any abstainers? You against or abstaining? Right. All right, then. Yeah. Right.
Well noted as an abstention.
Yeah.
Just need to confirm.
I'm setting it.
So we just need to confirm.
Oh, the vote, okay, well. Okay, members, that's 8 for and 1 abstention. Thank you. Item 7 on the agenda, and that's DFC call for evidence on housing supply strategy for Northern Ireland. And Pontius is going to take us through that again. Thank you. When you're ready, Pontius.
Sorry, members. The purpose of this report is to inform members that the Department for Communities has issued the first stage of a public consultation exercise, a call for evidence on a housing supply strategy, which they are proposing to bring forward. So it's a housing supply strategy for Northern Ireland. The call for evidence was launched on the 19th of May and it closes on the 16th of July next week. So the council wasn't specifically invited to submit, but we have become aware that this call for evidence is out there on the DFC website. We have put a link to the actual consultation for members' convenience in the report. They seek the submission of evidence, data, views on a selection of high-level issues that could help shape housing supply. They seek to publish a formal consultation in July, after July 2021, and have a strategy for presentation to ministers by March 2022. So in about a year's time, we would hope to have a draft strategy accordingly. Call for evidence document. It acknowledges that it's looking at the drivers of demand and the levers. They have a little bit of information already included in the document, but not that much that's new or useful. Members, there's a short chapter on planning. Like it's across the whole gambit of housing supply, and there's a short chapter, it's three or four pages on planning, and it acknowledges the important role that planning plays to provide the ability to shape and change the character, look and feel and the quantum of where we live. They have highlighted a number of issues that they are particularly interested in, but there's very little information on them at the minute. And they ask just 3 questions, and they're about, are we looking for any new legislation? Are there new processes that can be put in place, or is there evidence of land banking? They're the 3 questions that they ask for. Members, it's proposed that it's suggested that the council should make a submission at this stage, but it is a very early stage. It's just a call for evidence to put this council and our very serious concerns and issues on the map and on the agenda with Department for Communities. So the key message we believe that it's important to put forward is that that there is a very high social housing development need of a 5-year need of over 4,500, and that while we are currently working on the LDP to actually address the land supply issue, that they need to take it in board and probably work further with all the councils. So members, we have included a draft letter along those lines, which we propose, if members are happy enough, to submit to Department for Communities, and the wording of it is set out there in Appendix 14. So the key point is to bring to their attention the serious housing need within the district, and particularly Derry City, and reiterate that suitable delivery mechanisms are required in the short and medium timescale. So happy to get any questions, members, on the report or the wider consultation.
Thank you for that, Pontius. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Francis, for that. And first of all, state categorically that we welcome the consultation on the strategy, because there is a tremendous housing need. It can't be overstated, particularly within our district and particularly here in our city. And there needs to be a strategy to try and tackle the chronic homeless problem that we've got within our city. I would endorse the response, the draft response that's contained within the report. It does highlight some of the figures in terms of housing need, and it highlights the discrepancy with the housing growth indicators that have been heavily criticised in the past and challenged by this council. One thing that I do feel may support or may improve the draft response, and I'm just throwing it out for consideration, is if they're asking for a call of evidence, I think it's only right that we highlight the discrepancy with the housing growth indicators and the housing executives' housing needs assessments and the figures that the housing executive are arriving at. And I know it's alluded to there in terms of the number of people that are on the housing waiting list, but the department's own housing needs assessments that have been carried out. The figures far exceed those that have been provided for as part of the housing growth indicator. So if that can be incorporated within the response, but given that I have no doubt that the housing executive themselves are going to be a key partner or have a key role in terms of developing the strategy for addressing housing need, I have no doubt that that issue will be raised, but it doesn't do any harm for us to raise it as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Yes, and I totally agree with you that the growth indicators and the housing executives don't seem to really marry up as such. Are we all in favour of that? Okay, yeah. That's unanimous.
Chair,
Right, sorry, Alderman Hussey, go ahead.
thank you very much. I think we're outside of the quasi judicial element, so I think I can speak on this, and if it came to a vote, I could actually vote on it as well. But with regard to the reply, I note in that the issue of rural single dwelling applications is also an area of concern, but I don't notice anything in the draft response, and I think it is something that we need to be looking at. We're talking about in terms of 4,500 dwellings, reference social housing. Given the distribution and geography of the district, I see no reason why a considerable number of those cannot be considered as rural dwellings, because there's social housing need in the rural areas. And I note that it talks about single rural dwellings, but some of us have been looking at the idea and hoping for the development of rural clusters, and indeed that housing executives themselves would recognise that when they try to project housing demand and where people want houses, we've got to remember that people will apply for houses to the housing executive where they think they're going to get a house, not maybe where they would actually want to live. So it's something that I think should be reflected in this going forward. So that's, as members know, it's something that I care passionately about, and I know that there are others on planning and indeed council as a whole who have a care for this as well. So I hope that that is something that is not ignored under the weight of the needs of the city going forward in council's contribution to the consultation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. I think we would all agree with your sentiments there. Sometimes people tend to forget the rural needs as well.
Chair, through the chair, can I just ask what exactly, if members want us to amend that letter, is it just really to raise that there are rural housing issues, or which particular rural housing issues are we concerned about?
Through you, Chair, again, thank you, Francis.
Go ahead, Derek.
Within 3.3, it does talk about rural single dwelling applications. It doesn't tell us, well, what are you on about here? Are the authorities saying, right, we want to cut these out, some sort of moratorium on any future rural single dwellings, or is this council in favour of the encouragement of a repopulation of our rural areas by having a more relaxed approach to allowing not alone rural single dwellings, but housing clusters of social housing within the rural areas, instead of having all of social housing being placed in urban areas. I mean, considerable area of our district is rural, and that has to be recognised.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey.
Right.
Councillor Mann.
Sorry. So Chair, I'll come back. Yeah, it's under, behind that heading under the rurals, they broaden it out into their heading, rural housing supply in rural areas. And they talk about the need to address the need for affordable homes in rural areas. And I think it's social housing groups.
Just that's fine. We fully understand where you're coming from.
Okay, we'll go
Councillor
with
Mellon,
that.
you wish to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I know that it's referenced within the report, but they put a key highlight on the issue of land banking throughout the city and district, and the challenges that we're faced with as a council whenever applications are coming, and where we have sold lands for housing, we're unable to achieve our goals because of land banking. That should be revisited in terms of time limits, timeframes, and how we can move on from that if that is no longer viable for the landowners. But it should not be. The loophole should be closed and needs to be closed in terms of valuing up land for the sake of banking it with no genuine use or word that they're going to put that forward for social or affordable housing. And I think we really need to lean heavy on that in terms of it, because we contradict that plan time and time again. And here, because we all see the need for social housing, and we don't want to be turning that away. And I think that needs to be really heavily reflected in our response.
Just going to bring more in there, maybe to speak on that.
Yeah, no problem, Chair. I mean, obviously we hear the comments that members are making about, obviously in principle, or content with the consultation and the draft response. And what we will do is more than happy to add in further information regarding the evidence and the issue in and around the LDP and the housing needs and the discrepancy there with the HDI. We're more than happy to include reference to the rural needs balance and the issue in regard to ensuring that, you know, the allocation considers those matters. And also thirdly, particularly because of the issues raised in terms of land bank in the city and the implications that has had recently and ongoing. So we'll add that into the draft, no problem, Chair. Okay.
Eve Maura. Everybody content with that? Right, we're going to move on to item number 8, open for information, planning appeals update. Is Susan going to take us through it? Suzanne? Suzanne's going to take us through it.
Chair. Just in terms of the appeals update, members, you will see from the paper that no new appeals were submitted and no new appeals have been notified since the last committee meeting. So I'm happy to take any queries anybody has, any current appeals in the system on the appeal schedule. Thanks.
Alderman Carrigan.
Thank you, Chair, for letting. Just very quick comment, more than anything else, or is it just I suppose it's maybe the money involved in that, but you know, we have 47 ones in the Planning Appeals Commission in regards to our council. Is it, from my rough calculation there, are 10 of those quarry related? You know, there's not that many quarries, most of them the right lock right across ours, but I kind of counted are effectively 10 of those kind of quarry related. Is that an ongoing thing we sort of usually have as many as that, or is that just as it fell out? Thank you.
Okay, through the chair, I'll just clarify. So we have, those are 47 cases, Councillor Kerrigan, but a lot of them have been decided. So we don't have 47 current cases. In terms of the quarry applications, those range over a number of existing appeals that have yet to be heard. Because of the complications that have arisen with COVID, those hearings were postponed as due to the complexity of the hearings and the amount of people and experts involved. The PAC wanted to have those hearings in person. Okay, they are now resuming the physical hybrid, sort of a physical hybrid position on some of those appeals. So we expect some of those will be heard. We have a number of EIA determination appeals on quarries at the moment. So yeah, I mean, They are complex issues. We have a lot of enforcement issues with quarries as well, which has given rise to the number of appeals on here at the moment. I mean, 2 of those big appeals are into enforcement cases at the minute.
Suzanne, any other questions? No, okay, we'll move on to item 9, list of decisions issued. Any members? No, okay, we're going to go into confidential, if we could, please.